Hey, 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 Barbara. Hello, hello, Barbara. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Doing great. How you doing there, Albany? Thank you for joining us for Treasure Tip Thursdays here with Haley Capital. What's going on, Van Gibbs? The father behind hit producer Salam Remy. What's up? Um, and my Caribbean brethren. So Barbara, we have an exciting power pack 20 minutes that we're going to touch upon. And, once again, for Treasure Tip Thursdays, this is our lunch, learn, and earn Big Shug. Our lunch, earn, and learn series designed to help you generate revenue for your business, for your life, and so that you live it very fulfilled. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce my esteemed guest, Ms. Barbara Haley. She's been in business for, 15 plus years, single mom, breast cancer survivor, pretty tied in with understanding how to really turn crap into sugar.
Good afternoon. Thanks
Right.
for calling USA Financial Planning
And today, what we
Advice.
want to
This is
focus
Joel
on,
Sylvain
because a lot of
speaking,
times
how may I help you today?
entrepreneurs or people are struggle with the fact of how do they generate revenue. And one of the key things that I've noticed is the importance of communication, the power of using your words correctly. If you ever had a kid that when they were 2 years old or 3 years old, and they started getting temper tantrums, and you're saying, use your words, right? So I want to touch upon that. But before I do that, I want to let you know what Haley Capital has done. What she does, she works with real estate developers. She works with small, medium-sized businesses and make sure that they get the resources needed for them to thrive. A couple of weeks ago, she was one of the first to talk about the PPP, the payment protection plan. And now she wants to help entrepreneurs after you've created, whether it's a website, an entity, how do you communicate your service to others and bring that value proposition? So with that being said, here's Miss Barbara Haley Capital.
Thank you, Joel. Hey, listeners, it's great to be with you today. When you talk about communication, let me highlight for a minute an area where I think I produce amazing results. So I have this thriving business, and I do I have 10 or 12 great services that I offer, but I am masterful at selling through email. So let me talk about that for a minute. Is that all right, Joel?
Absolutely, okay. Yes.
So I can go out and do presentations. I can go and talk to people, but where I close the most deals is through my emails. I probably haven't done a networking event in 5 years.
Wow.
And I do networking on the phone. I mean, I'll get out there, but I'm out there to contribute, not to receive if I'm out in the community. So I'm home a lot in my home office, which I've set up beautifully here. And so my communication, I can get an email from a potential, and the process. Let me back up a second. So you want to think of the sales pipeline as a pipeline, like a gas pipeline. And in the beginning, you throw stuff in and it gets clogged, it stops, and how do you move that through the sales process? So you don't have an initial conversation and all of a sudden it's sales. That's not a sales activity. That's maybe a marketing activity or an introduction activity. So in sales and making money, we tend to confuse all of that. So I'm going to say to your listeners, start to understand, and we can put something up on the website. What are the processes? There's the sales activities, the marketing activities, the contract activities. Know which activity you're in when you're in that activity, because you speak from that activity.
Right.
If you're in a marketing activity and you start talking sales, that's why people feel pressure. They don't feel pressure if you're in a marketing activity, you're talking about marketing, because that's not the same wording as you are in sales. So, and I've learned I can take most of the time, but you got to understand, my referrals are very well teed up. So let me clarify that.
So I want to pause on that, because I know we're short on time, but you're providing some valuable information. can you also break down what's the difference between sales,
All right.
marketing,
Let's skip
and
which
the
branch of the
contract
military
activity?
did you serve in and when did you
Because
separate?
once again, when we're talking about if you're in the entertainment industry, you are selling your music, or you're selling your creativity, whatever case may be. But then you have to learn how to market yourself, right? And
Yeah.
then go into contract with working with your attorney. Or if you are in a small business owner and you provide, cement to construction companies, how do you market yourself? What's the difference between marketing, selling, and going to contract? So could you provide those definitions? Because I think that's key.
Yeah, no, sure. And then there's cold marketing, there's warm marketing, there's, people that know you and have a relationship with you. So when you're in the moment, you need to identify what area you're in. I'll give you a quick example. It's sort of a little ahead of the game, but in my invoices, it's a marketing piece.
Mm-hmm.
Already in the contract stage, but my invoices are a marketing piece, and I make my invoices. If how many times have I gone and printed an invoice, running down the road to call the client because I have a question on the invoice? There's no number on the invoice. There's no website on the invoice. There's not enough information. It's just a plain, simple invoice. No one put the effort into creating that invoice as a marketing piece. So I'm really big on that. So my invoices are a marketing piece. They want to call me or they pick up that and print it out. There's anything they want to know. I have every single payment that they've made inside that invoice, because then they'll go, wait, did I pay her for the last week? How many did I pay? Every invoice is listed in that piece. So when my goal is to not have them have to ask questions. So when you create a marketing piece, see if it answers in the shortest period of time the questions that they may have, and then anticipate what they're thinking. So the anticipate needs is huge. You go to Walmart, you buy a toy. The person in the old days, we kind of do a lot of self-checkout today, but in the old days, they would say, do you need batteries with that toy? The guy Christmas Eve or the 2 days before, that's called anticipating those needs. Do you need batteries with that? Oh my goodness. Yes, I need batteries. I'm taking this toy. I'm going to go grab it. I'm going to have batteries. So we want to think from anticipating needs. So
especially, I love that point, because that kind of caters to Christmas time. Because that's why when I was buying, gifts for my daughter, I'd be like, oh man, got to make sure I got the batteries, right? And to touch on that, part of marketing is the full experience, right?
Yes.
Being able to provide the full experience. So when you think of anticipating, think of the experience that you want that end user to have, and saying and showing people that, you know how to deliver an experience. Because people enjoy experiences. They don't enjoy buying. I mean, they enjoy buying something, but like you said, there's a difference between marketing and sales. So
right, that's right. No, perfect. And then there's drip marketing. So I'll think of something new and I'll drip it to the client. So let's say I've had a conversation with you about closing or about a building and doing the cost segregation, but I haven't heard from you in a little bit. Well, I don't call you and ask you or email you and ask you if you want to purchase this now. I find some reason to drip something on you and then ask for a call. So in my emails, I'd say where I shine the most is I have no pronouns. So if I have an email that I'm sending to you, and I may use your name 6 times in that email, but I never use the words he, she, they, them, it. I'll say, hey, Joelle, I'm sending the invoice to you. It will be due. I won't say it will be due. I'll say the invoice will be due.
Mm-hmm.
The invoice will be due. So there's no it's. And why do I say that? Well, in people's busy lives, they have to think, wait, what's the it? Then they close down that email and go on to the next thing because they had to think too much.
Right.
So think. And I really can get a one email from a referral and close it in maybe 2 emails. Now, it's teed up well. But then I've learned, too, that I'll say, listen, I'm going to send you the estimate. Depending on the client, depending on the way I feel with the referral partner, I'll say, and I'm going to send you the entire package, including the deposit invoice, so you can look at it all at once and save you time. And so I do that mostly with my hospitals and my doctors and my surgeons, because they don't have time for me to send them an invoice. And then they don't have time for me to come back with, well, what's the package? Maybe that weekend was the only time they had to review the whole thing.
Sure.
I anticipate my customers' energy and time, especially my doctors and hospitals. And I'll send them the whole package, and then 2 days later, there's a deposit in my bank account. I didn't even have to do anything. All I did was they're like, we're ready. They don't even ask. That's how it is. Now, I've worked hard to get there, so it doesn't happen overnight. But because I'm always looking for the customer, I'm always looking how to make it better. And I would never, ever, ever, I mean, let me say it again, never say, you didn't call me back. So right? I would say, I didn't get a message. Is there any way you left me a message and I missed it? So
I like that. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, I would say, so let's say I was waiting on it, even if it's a referral partner, even if it's somebody I'm doing business with that they're waiting on something for me or I'm waiting on something for them. Like a banker might say, you didn't call me back. I'm waiting on your documents. I teach in my training, never say that. I would say, Joelle, I didn't receive a message. Is there any way you sent me a message and I missed it? And so I put the onus on me, because how do I know you didn't leave a message? So I make sure, don't accuse, just ask, because people say, yeah, I left you a message, and then, what are you doing with that? So it's not really great interactions either. So I never use the word you. I won't even say I sent you the document. I will say the document is included. I find ways to never put a you in there, hardly ever, because people respond to things differently. And so I make sure when they're reading that email, it's pristine. And when I first begin to sell on the internet or through emails, I might take 2 hours to write a simple email.
Great.
And I would look up the words and see what those words meant. And now it's automatic and it comes to me naturally. But I've built that muscle. So I can sit and write an email to the top CEO of a big business and get it done in 10 minutes. And I also will send myself that email to see how it comes across my screen. So I'll test it with myself, or I'll test it with others, depending. And then I got so good at it that I don't necessarily need to do that anymore, although I might. It depends on who it is. But for the most part, my emails are so well structured, there's no thinking to it. No pronouns. Don't do he, she. If I use your name 6 times, that makes it easy for you to read, because now you see this is Joelle. Does that communicate? I mean, it's sort of thrown in there maybe without all the context necessary to fully grasp this. But I'm hoping that we evolve to some areas where we spend 20 minutes and maybe we have a way for people to see the documents and see how things are written, and they can take screenshots of it and then have that template to use forward.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned that, because I think that's going to be kind of like our next phase is, looking to create almost like a class that talks about how to communicate, because what you're talking about is how to, with everyone doing social distancing, and now that we are, quarantined, you're going to have to be able to do business through social media. You need to learn how to do business utilizing email, whatever case may be. And a lot of times, older folks are used to that face-to-face. I need to do this business face-to-face. But you have to learn to pivot, right?
That's right.
And so how do you communicate still your soul and how good-natured that you are through an email? Because email can seem rather cold. Or how do you market yourself on IG, on, LinkedIn, social media, whatever case may be, Facebook, to be able to be relatable so that someone can build trust in you? And how do we leverage those marketing tools? So I think, what you're saying is very key. And the art of communication and the art of choice of words is important. Replacing the pronouns with the individual's name, because it becomes personal, right? I love hearing my name, except when my mother's calling me and yelling, right? So that's key. And it's phenomenal that you learned to do this and you did this by yourself. So with that being said, we have about another 6 more minutes. What I'd like to also touch upon is the art of debate. If you can give us a quick snippet of how to diffuse an argument when someone is very passionate about a certain position that might be adverse to yours, but you want to engage in and come to a win-win solution.
Oh yeah, great. So do you mind if I throw a quick little political one in there that I had with the winner of the Harvard debate team nationally? So he's about 26 years old, and we were at an event, and he's the winner of the Harvard national debate in the country. Okay.
Right.
So he's an amazing debater, and I'm not. I mean, I don't have any skills or training in debating, but I am a communicator. And so we were talking about the border issue. This is way before, this is a year or so ago. And I looked at him and I said, well, what's the context? So you can't just make a blanket statement. What's the context? Is your context concern for people that may be escaping a bad situation, or is your concern for the welfare of the United States? Just give me the context. So anytime there's a debate, the context must be articulated. One context cannot argue with another context. And work. It just won't work. One paradigm cannot argue with another paradigm. You must move people into that same context. And you say, no, look, I'm going to give you my context or my perspective, and we're going to discuss it inside my perspective, and then I'll be happy to discuss it inside your perspective. Because life is really one big perspective.
Yes.
That our perspectives are real things, then we miss the mark and argue with people, and it's futile. But if we can create context and then have those debates inside of there, we can come together almost every time. I've never seen it inside the right context, in the same context, that we can't come together. My 22-year-old daughter is now living in Washington, D.C. She's a 4.0 student, top 1.5% of a class of 18,000, double major, double minor. And
bravo.
And I always read her emails because she was operating at a very high level, even as a freshman at the university. So I'd access her emails, and she'd say, Mom, did you read the email? And I go, yeah, shape the context for it. Because she said, I needed just a little tweaking on this, or I need a little help on that. And I'd say, well, what's the context? Or I'd say, I read the email, I got the context. So if she and I could videotape our conversations, it really could change parent-child relationships, because everything with us is about context. If she calls me, and says, Mom, say you drive a speed limit or lower, and she's, I'm 22 now, I put the context. I said, yeah, and you're my daughter, and I put it in the right context. Say, so I create context for her. And she said, oh, I got it, Mom, I got it. So that we rarely, hardly ever have an argument, maybe 6 in her whole life, because it's always shaped by context. So what do I mean by context? It's just the framework for which you put around something. So in other words, if you are talking about the coronavirus and the safety of people with corona, that's one context, and there's validity, and there's things he said. But if you're talking me, a breast cancer who just went through my 4th surgery, and if I'd have been stopped from being able to have the reconstruction, I might actually be in very bad shape, because I wasn't able to get the follow surgery that I needed, and these women are not getting that. So in this conversation, I'm going to say, well, if I'm talking about here, we can talk about that conversation, but we got to talk about the other things too in a different context. Remember, one context cannot argue with the other context. It won't work. You must be inside the same context. One paradigm cannot argue. And also, one paradigm cannot always see the other paradigm. So in a context, you must shape it well, and then have people inside. It's sort of inside that framework to have the discussion. Then move into another framework to have another discussion. And when you do that work,
so pause right there, because that's great. When shout out to my man Dave Gossett, music executive, as well as now he's a real estate mogul broker in New York. I love the way you describe different paradigms in context, because when it comes down to sales, which is, it can sometimes be adversary, right? Yes. People get intimidated by salespeople because the salesperson is providing their perspective, and it feels like they're forcing it on someone else, and that's the reason why they have the defense mechanisms, right? However, when you can position yourself and say, guess what? This is what I am. This is how I see things based off your perspective. Do you agree? And now you are in a conversation, and it's becomes collaboration, right?
That's right.
So let's definitely piggyback with that. Not next week, but come up with a way in which you can have like some 5 little tips that we can put on that website for bit.ly Treasure Tip Thursdays, that we can put it on the site so that people can know how to be able to have conversations, even if you have different perspectives. So you come together as one, number one, and number two, understand the difference between sales, marketing, and contract, and how do you leverage your contract as a marketing tool.
Yeah.
So those are some great tips of our takeaways today. Once again, thank you very much, Barbara Haley from Haley Capital, and this is Joel Sylvain with Maximilian Enterprises, and we're here on Treasure Tip Thursdays, lunch, learn, and earn. Get your eat on, both mentally as well as get the food, because I'm going to get me some food right now before my next meeting. We are out.
Thank you, Joel. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's